Umejoke mahali shimo yako iko leta.
Like we always do with this time.
Hi, Annie.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
You look so yellow.
I'm yellow. Alan.
So, we were having a discussion earlier.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible to separate art from the artists?
I think it's on a very personal level. Sorry, you
Go
when you
ahead,
finish
go ahead.
asking the question, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's on a very personal level because there's some artists I can separate the art from the artist and thus continue to partake of the art without thinking of the artist, and there's some that I just can't. Like, especially there's so much I just can't. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because like the issues are so personal to me. Like whatever flaws they're doing are so personal to me. Like you would think because Chris Brown hits women, I wouldn't listen to Chris Brown. So sure, I won't buy his music. Well, I'll go for his concert if he's going to Kenya. You know what I mean? It's a thing that bothers me every day. But like R. Kelly, like to the point that I can't even like listen to his music on the radio. Like I'll switch the station or like switch off the TV. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm trying not to give him any time at all, whether it's like time or money or airtime or C-suite, like anything. The only thing I watch about R. Kelly is a Boondocks episode because it's like telling, you know what I mean? But like I think it's really hard because your art is I guess an expression of yourself. So when R. Kelly is singing about sex, you hear him sing about sex and his reputation is as a sexual crooner, but you know that he's crooning about 14-year-olds, you know, like that can't leave my head. Do you know what I mean? Or like, you know, Diaz, for example, when all of the characters in his books are like men who can kind of like do whatever they want to women or sometimes treat women badly, like that's something that he's done. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit difficult for me. I think it just depends on your level of how much emotional pain you're willing to endure to partake of the art.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Alright.
Do you think it's possible to separate an artist from his art or her art?
Yes, I do think it's possible. But I also think there's times where it's not possible. For example, you guys were talking about Kanye West today. Kanye West, can I just say, really it goes back to his first album. That is my album of the century. I love me some Kanye, and I get that he's a bit I think he's trying to be, honestly, I think Kanye's trying to be woke without understanding. So there's some guidance that's needed there. However, depending on what his music sounds like next album, I might be down. The end.
Thank you.
Wagwan.
How you doing, man?
Salama sana.
Do you think it's possible to separate an artist from their art?
Some artists, yes. Depending on the acts that they are doing that we have to separate them from. But yeah, you should. It balances out, depends on who it is and what they've done.
Yeah?
Yep.
So there's degrees to the things that you would be willing to separate from them.
Of course, like R. Kelly and his behaviors. We don't. Either way, I wasn't really like an R. Kelly fan. Like I'd download his music and follow his songs, but
You got cancelled.
I don't usually. I think I don't think about the acts they do when I'm listening to their songs. I just enjoy the song as is.
Do you think there's a point at which they can do something that is so deplorable that you will have to think about it regardless of whether the song is great or not?
I don't think anyone has done yet. Like I think it has to affect me for me to like change. Like if I knew Kevin Spacey and he assaulted a friend of mine when they were back in the day, then I'd be like, no more House of Lies, House of Cards, sorry, not House of Lies. But artists and their acts are a bit tough to split for me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Santi!
Hi, Dougie.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great.
Fantastic.
Today we're talking about artists and their art and what they do in their private lives versus what they produce, artistically speaking. Do you think it's possible to separate artists from their art?
No, I don't think it's possible.
Why not?
Because if there's anything that's going to be more descriptive of a person, it's going to be their art. It's going to be their art or whatever they do, because it's a I think it takes so much to create art. It takes so much And when I say art, we'll think about musicians and painters, but those are not the only artists. Even the things we do when we go to work every day, you're creating something. I think that's what art is, whatever we're creating. So not just the big artists, the well-known ones, even us as individuals, you can't take it away from who you are as a person. Even if the story is not yours, if it's fictitious, there's still going to be an imprint of you and what your character is about in that art. I think we just like to pick and choose. Because if we're going to talk about, Diaz, like we were having this conversation earlier today, and I learned that he's in a lot of good causes. Magunga was listing that he was in immigration, like he was a vocal voice. He was a voice for a lot of good issues. If there's now one that he's an alleged sexual abuser, we didn't complain when he was pushing for immigration, no one was causing. But now that he's an alleged sexual abuser is when we have a problem. I don't know. We like to pick and choose. And I don't think you can when it comes to art. It's an integral part of them. Even if it is not the story, if it's fictitious, there still has to be a part of them in it.
But if you didn't know what his allegations were before a certain point, and those are things that you're fundamentally against, are you picking and choosing, or are you just reacting to you as you're reacting to yourself and knowing what you stand for and what you don't?
Yeah, I think that ties in, because if you didn't know, then you could not make a decision. But now that you do know, there has to be a reaction, and I think that on how we react to it, like whether we listen to their music or not, like whether we decide are we going to separate the artist from the art, which I don't think is possible, then that is actually on us. Whatever they have done, it is now on us. And then now we can always break it down into more mild things, like we're going to see what kind of reaction they had and things like that. But I think it's just copying out. You can't separate an artist from their art, and if they are, as we all are, horrendous people at some point, like we all have good and bad, you can't take away that bad aspect. It's just because you don't like it, but you can't pick and choose it. It exists. And ignoring it doesn't matter. Doesn't make a difference. It still exists.
Thank you. The G's get internet.
Hey.
Hi G.
Hey.
How you doing?
Shut up. Hey.
Treat others how you want to be treated.
We're trying to sort lunch.
You come down first.
I am sorry. They gave me food and I'm really shutting it down. Anyway.
Hi G.
Hi.
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Habari ya Cuba?
Hey. Let's just like skip that for like a second. And then
Alright.
yeah.
Do you think it's possible to separate an artist from their art?
I think I do it almost all the time. Every time I consume art, I never think much about the artist. Even when I read like a book, for instance, the first thing that, like, of course I will see this is by this guy, but I will look up that author after I've read the book and I've liked it. So for me, it's never, or even with music, unless I know, like for instance, Artisola, the ones who have released a song, the first instance is to look up the song. If I've heard it somewhere and I don't know the person who sang it, is to look up the song and then I'll find the artist later. So for me, it is something that I do. It is how I consume art, basically. Yeah.
With the separation.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that would then break that wall between an artist's art and the person.
Well, you see, I guess you're asking because of the recent development with #MeToo and all the artists who have been, exposed. But you see, the thing is, when I'm consuming that art, I'm doing it for myself. Yeah, it is very possible to be entertained by someone who is a terrible human being. It happens. So if you can be terrible and I do not agree with what you do, for instance, you get, because if you were to stop being entertained by people who have done some shit in the past, however big or small, we would not be entertained by music at all. Like all our favorites, from MJ to Lionel Richie to Nas to Kanye to all these people who have been doing some damn shit. So it's difficult for me to stop listening to someone's music simply because or reading someone's book because he's done some shit. That does not make, if I read Diaz does not make me a rape apologist or someone who like supports rape or something like that. If I listen to Kanye, it does not mean I think slavery was a choice. It's because Kanye produces good music and I love good music. Some of the art that they produce even inspire many people. It does not mean that you agree with their
stances on political issues and so on.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Right. Good one.
Okay. Hi, Onyi.
Hi.
Mambo.
Poa sana.
So, what do you think about separation of art from artists in light of recent events?
I don't know. It's something that's bothering me and that's been bothering me for a while, because a lot of artists produce seminal work that is influential to millions of people. That's why they're considered artists or great artists or whatever. Like, their work speaks to people in different ways, because art is subjective. What you take out of it is not going to be the same thing someone else takes out of it. It's not going to be the same thing that maybe the artist intended for you to take out of it. And so, because art becomes so personal when you're consuming it and enjoying it, it affects me thinking about the person who made this thing could be contrary to me, or contrary to the ideas that they're trying to portray in their art. I don't know. It's a point of conflict for me. I'm still not resolved on what I would do or what I will do or what I think about. Because like Chris Brown gets a pass sometimes for me, but R. Kelly doesn't. It's all just weird.
So, one extra question. When you buy someone's music, you're empowering them financially.
Yes.
Is that how you view how you consume art? Whether or not you're empowering a terrible human being financially because money provides security?
I mean, that's not really a consideration I make, because a lot of these people are already successful. So me and my $10 or my $50 is not really gonna change their life. If I don't give it to them, or if I do give it to them, there are people who are going to support them regardless of what they hear, because some people are just terrible humans, or some people just want to support what they want to support, and they have the right to. So I don't feel like my withholding my financial support is going to affect them in a way that would be meaningful for me or for them. But that at the same time, you don't want to think of contributing to deplorable behavior. But then now it becomes, what are you willing to condone and what are you not willing to condone? What are you willing to support? It's a whole bunch of just jumbled things in the heads. It's a mess.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I actually do take
Like we always do with this time. I got to shine.